Welcome to the On the Button podcast, coming from one of Big Button's amazing new edit suites here at our headquarters in Birmingham. Today, we're going to be talking about AI and how specifically it's used in video production. Obviously, most video producers now around the world will be working with AI in some ways, and there's lots of advantages to that, but there are some significant challenges and threats involved with working with AI. And we feel at Big Button that maybe not everyone's aware of those, and they probably should be. So today I have a very special guest. I'm joined here with Sam Lewis, who's our production director at Big Button. He is an expert on everything AI, especially in our world of video, as well as kind of dealing with all the logistics and making Big Button run every day. And that's why I've invited him along today so that we can discuss all of those opportunities and threats that we've talked about. So Sam, just so that our viewers can get an idea, do you mind just introducing yourself for me?
Yeah, so my name's Sam. I'm production director at Big Button. I've been here for coming up to 9 years now. And yeah, as you say, I kind of oversee all the operations here. And that involves as well as kind of seeing around corners and what's up ahead. And obviously AI has been the big kind of buzzword on pretty much everyone's lips. So yeah, we've been kind of having a lot of conversations here about how we can incorporate that into our processes and how we deliver our productions. So yeah, it's a topic that I know we've been having a lot of conversations about as well.
Yeah, indeed.
And how we can use it effectively. So yeah.
So that's a great place to start. I obviously am involved with video and I use AI a lot. Let's talk a little bit first about how people in our world are using AI. And that's, I guess, from the agency side, but also some of our clients will be using AI as well on their video production projects. Can you introduce some of the ways that it's used through that process?
Yeah. So as you say, the speed that AI is developing is dizzying. It's really hard to keep up with. I was chatting to Chris, our head of post-production, the other day about this. And he was saying that something outside of work that he was building using AI 6 months ago, he asked it to do it and it was like, I can't do that. He did it the other week and it just did it straight away. So it's really happening at a very quick pace. So I'm sure everyone's got their own kind of stories and ways of using it or not, as the case may be. The Wistia State of Video report that I think you showed me the other day showed some of the ways that other producers are using it. And sort of pre-production is a lot, and we use that a lot here. So kind of reducing a lot of the kind of production admin. Matt behind the camera over there went to Sao Paulo recently, and we used it as a way of researching the risks over there and informing our own kind of health and safety and our risk plan, which, well, he's still here. So obviously yeah, it worked. So it's been very, very useful from a kind of production admin point of view and in pre-production. I know some, and this is probably one of the most controversial, I think at the moment, I get the sense, some producers use it for script writing and in creative development. That's not for everyone. And I think we do give people the choice whether they want to do that or not. But it can help get over that kind of blank page syndrome and just kind of get you started with ideas. So that's been massively useful. We use it a lot in post-production. So mainly fixing technical issues. It can be from as simple as removing an irritating background sound to creating whole scenes that people sit in. We've also used it to fix speech where someone may have misspoken in an interview and we haven't been able to go back and film pickups of that contributor. So we've been able to use AI to basically, with the client's permission, with the contributor's permission, to basically kind of fix what they're saying. So I think the one example that comes to mind is, I think you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in the Southern Hemisphere, you don't have hurricanes, do you? Is that what it is?
I think they spin in different directions, don't they? Which is why they've got different names.
Yeah, so it's like a hurricane and a cyclone. Basically, the contributor called it a hurricane. It should have been a cyclone. They gave up permission and we were able to fix that. So little things like that have been massive. We've also been able to do it to fix images as well. So we did an educational video for one of our rail clients, and we had an image. I'm going to say it was late 19th century. It probably wasn't that early, but in my mind, that's when it was.
It was black and white, I imagine.
Yeah,
right.
Black and white, small, damaged, but they wanted it to appear in the video, and we used AI to basically upscale it, improve the quality, fix it, and put it in. And the subject matter expert who we were working with was absolutely delighted when he saw it. And that's quite a cool use of it, I think. So those are kind of like some of the kind of more technical uses. We also use it in our business development as well. So when you're doing pitches and proposals, it's quite useful for kind of painting a picture, I guess, of what you're pitching to the client. So yeah, those are a few examples of how we've used it. I know that so there are certain tools out there that let you do the kind of full editing and all that kind of thing. I am probably, the jury's still out for me on how effective that is. I don't think it saves quite as much time. Like I say, they're developing incredibly quickly. What about you? Like, how do you use AI in yours? Like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm involved with video strategy, but I also help on the business development side for Big Button. And you've talked there, and we'll talk about some of the risks with some of the things you've just talked about shortly. But I do find one of the problems if you're using it with creative is everything starts to look the same, right? Because AI, you've said it has its patterns that it knows works. So everything starts to look the same and it's hard to really stand out. The other thing as I've noticed is that even before we're involved, a client might start using AI for a brief. And that presents a number of challenges as well, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously there's lots of opportunities with AI, which we're all kind of working out. There are definitely threats as well. I think AI is very, very trendy. And I think a lot of people and organizations are saying you have to use AI without necessarily kind of thinking about what that actually means in practice. And one of my favorite phrases at the moment is cognitive surrender, which is where people are basically prompting AI to generate work for them, such as a brief or a script, but they're not checking its output. That then gets shared, and that information is inaccurate. It's wrong, all those technical issues with it. And then you're having to spend more time fixing those problems when if someone had just perhaps spent an extra 10 minutes just checking it. So cognitive surrender is massive, and I think that is genuinely a real threat, I think.
It's a kind of false economy there, isn't it? It's almost, I get it, because writing a brief can be really hard. That's one of the things we talk to our clients about. We have our briefing sheet that helps people put a brief together. But I guess sometimes people just feed data into the AI. It spits out a brief. They think, God, wow, that looks awesome. But they don't necessarily interrogate it properly and check it. And so then we put together a proposal based on a brief that the client hasn't really necessarily read properly. And then our proposal is incorrect. It doesn't really address the things they need it to. So then we've wasted our time, they've wasted their time, and no one gets what they need. So that's a good example, I guess, of when AI doesn't really work very well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's inefficient. AI is very good at seeing the shape of things, but it's not so great on detail yet. I think it's just like having a very smart colleague, who you can run something by,
But you have, mate. I'm always here for you.
I'm very fortunate. I know. I rely on that a lot. Yeah. And I think it is very tempting, isn't it, to kind of just be like, this is going to solve all my problems. Yep. I need to write this brief. I've got 15 minutes before this meeting. I'll just batch this out. Oh, great. Well, this looks correct. Send it across.
And it's a slippery slope. You just do it more and more and more.
Incredibly so.
Yeah.
The danger you do have, I guess, is like if a client or someone uses, because we brief internally here as well. So this probably isn't just client side. This is obviously for us as well and any other agency. If you're briefing anyone to do any work for you, is you give an incorrect brief. They then use AI to interpret your brief. Where do the errors end? It's just that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really good. I think we've kind of introduced the opportunities there. I mean, the other thing I've noticed is clients so we use AI for captions and things sometimes, don't we? Yeah. And it's pretty good. And so sometimes clients are happy with that. As long as we manage our expectations and say, okay, if you're happy with an AI version, there will be errors, but it'll be very quick for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like translations. So we've got a very good translation partner who we work with, and we use AI to get us in the ballpark. So it gets, if we're editing something, like we're editing something in German recently, it was enough to get us going with that edit. But we would never publish those captions. It was enough for us to edit. It was enough for the client to review. But you always want to send it to a native speaker or a translator to do that final input, I guess, to make sure that it is actually correct and it's actually accurate. But it still takes time. It's reduced the time that it would take to do that task, but it isn't instant, like AI generating responses, it still requires a bit of time to check it. And I think that's the thing that's probably, because AI responds so quickly and it all looks so good and convincing, it is tempting to not do that extra bit of, just checking that what you're doing is correct. Yeah, captions and translations it's been it's a huge help in that front.
So generally then in the video industry, what are the biggest benefits? It sounds like it's going to be faster production is a big benefit. What might the others be?
I can envision a future where there's probably certain types of content that people have wanted to do video for in the past, but just haven't had the budget to be able to do it. For example, one of our finance clients was saying that they publish a lot of internal reports, and they've always wanted to use one of their kind of guys saying it, as opposed to giving people huge documents that they have to read. If you have an AI avatar saying it, rather, you can probably create that video if you wanted to, and you probably could do it in a budget that is, cost friendly. So I can see types of video being used for that, I think. So yeah, I think there probably will be more video content, more options available to people. Whether the cost comes down, I don't know. What do you think? Because obviously it still costs money to do tokens and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think the jury's out on that because, as you know, the AI companies, the LLMs, and all the others are starting to realize the cost of what they're delivering is much higher than they anticipated, and so those costs are likely to change. I think for me, it's people think when they think AI, they think it means that they can do tasks they couldn't do before more quickly. But for us, I think the bigger benefits are just the fine tuning and fixing and polishing of content. Like we use AI on most of our projects now, I think, whether that's just tweaking audio so it's a little bit better, or taking some background noise out, or enhancing a picture in a little way, or whatever it might be. Even fixing eyeline, something that we've always struggled with interviews, sometimes with people that are a little bit shy looking at a camera or whatever it might be. We can fix those things. And we'll talk about the problems in a minute. But I think for every opportunity, there is probably an equal risk. A project we've just worked on, when we've done a load of those things, one of our clients came back and said they're concerned now that their standards will drop because they'll just assume we can fix it all with AI. What do you think about that? Do you think, okay, yeah, we can? Or is there a good reason to get it right first time?
I'd always aim to get it right first time. I think the other thing is that there's always a cost somewhere to using AI. Recently, we've been looking at data subcontractors who would give personal data to as part of the data protection policy. And actually, if you look at a lot of the tools that are used or have been, we haven't, just to clarify that for those clients. But like I was looking at the data processing agreements or lack of, and they either don't exist, or if they do, I'm not sure many organizations would give it a pass, because yes, AI can fix everything, but you are handing over the personal data of that contributor or whatever to potentially a tool that is going to be using that data in unethical ways. So it really does depend on the problem, I think, that is there. I think apart from anything else as well, at what point does it become the person who you filmed? If you touch them up so much with AI, they become an AI avatar. All that trust, all that authenticity, it's just going to go. You're going to get an uncanny representation of that. And do people want that? Well, maybe they do. Maybe I'm getting a bit old-fashioned in that sense. I know. What do you think? Like,
I think that we did something recently, didn't we, where someone wasn't particularly happy they didn't look happy enough, and so we were able to use AI to happyify them slightly, and it. Like we said, I think it was good because it was subtle, so you couldn't really tell what it had done, but it had done something, and it made that person just seem a little bit more positive. But again, that's another trap. That it's like, okay, from now on, we don't have to worry about whether someone's performance is any good, because we'll just make it good in post. But you do, if you are going to do that, what I would say is you do have to have a disclaimer to say, because it's a misrepresentation of that person and the organization they represent. If someone's watching something and thinks they're seeing someone perform in a certain way, but that's fake, then that has implications on a lot of things, especially if you're in finance or tech. If you're talking about investments and you think, I trust that person, I'm going to invest. You don't trust that person. You trust the person that's being created by AI, which is a misrepresentation of that person. So I think it's a really interesting but tricky area to navigate. And you should definitely get legal and compliance teams involved with those discussions. And as always, each compliance team will have a different opinion on that and the risk associated with it. This takes us perfectly into the risks. I'm amazed, and I've always been amazed. We work with clients that would sign up to YouTube without checking the terms and conditions. And I think this is even worse, right?
100%.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that Wistia report that I mentioned earlier, they also list a lot of the tools that are being used by video producers. And there are a couple. So CapCut, which I know is like really popular, they don't have a data processing agreement. This first, which is always an alarm bell. Fine if you're personal, whatever. But as an organization who is processing personal data or controlling personal data, that's a massive red flag.
Yeah.
They also have third-party integrations, which they basically say in their data policy that they're not responsible for. So if you're uploading that data, that is then being passed on to third parties, and you don't know what they're going to be doing. I suspect a lot of it is probably quite vanilla. But then you've also got things like if those models are using the content that you're training it up on, then you're going to start seeing that person might be used to train, it might be an avatar that looks similar to, I don't know, your CFO who you uploaded, a couple of weeks ago. So Higgsfield is a good example, actually. In the Higgsfield, they do have a data processing agreement, but in near the top, in capital letters, it says, do not share any proprietary, personal, confidential, sensitive information, biometric information. Yeah, the rest of it's all written in center case, but that at the top,
Right, yeah.
because if you're a brand and you've uploaded, a logo because you wanted to animate it, or if you've got a brand mascot, for example, and you upload it, Higgsfield, which essentially is a bit of a marketplace, I think, or uses lots of kind of third-party tools, is going to start using that data. So if someone asks for something that looks similar to what your brand mascot is or your logo, it will use that to train.
Yeah.
And create something else. And like you say, everything's going to start looking the same. Everything will look homogenous. And that's, I guess, the less serious side of like the more serious data breaches that, and the personal data violations that it's a minefield. It feels like the Wild West at the moment, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's, even with clients, like we said, they might be using it to put a brief together. So maybe there's a confidential acquisition coming up and they put that information into AI to create a brief. Then suddenly the LLM knows about that acquisition. And if someone asks about that acquisition, then who's to say it might not come up in the response from that AI? And so I guess the guidance is going to be, if you are using AI, you need to be aware of the terms and conditions and the implications of using that, whatever platform it is.
Absolutely. I think a lot of organizations are probably, like Claude have probably got enterprise plans, that's where, and Google Gemini, all those, they do have enterprise level plans where they do have very secure data processing agreements. And obviously those tools are kind of developing all the time. It's those other ones that kind of pop up quickly. You've just got to be a little bit more cautious of it.
And I guess depending on where you are, so if you're in Europe, then you have to abide by GDPR rules. And so you have to choose one that abides by those rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a whole other thing, because if they don't have an EEA agreement, so the data's going out, because a lot of servers will be in the US. I won't bore people with that on this podcast, but like, if you're sending that data outside of Europe, you need to have an agreement with those people that where you're sending that data is safe and it's secure, especially if you're a massive organization where data is crucial to what you do.
Any data you're storing as well as AI.
Absolutely.
And people don't think about this stuff, I don't think.
No, and I don't blame them.
It's
really.
not the exciting part of video production.
It's not the exciting side, is it? And also, like, it's a bit like when you download a really cool app and then there's a really long, you get a new MacBook or whatever.
Agree.
Exactly. You just skip through it, do you? Like, no one's checking this stuff. But I think, and like I say, probably most of the time it's probably fairly harmless. But I don't know. You're just waiting for something bad to happen, and then suddenly everyone will be paying a lot more attention to this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What about errors? So we just assume AI knows. I mean, I've used AI for a little bit of coding here and there, and it'll chuck something out and there'll be errors in it. And I'll say, there's errors in this. And it'll say, oh, yeah, there are actually. I've fixed it now. So even AI knows it's making these mistakes. And I guess that applies not just to developing code, also to video or script writing or whatever it might be. Tell me a little bit
Yeah,
more.
absolutely. And I think that, do you know what? And that comes back to my point earlier about cognitive surrender. I think it's just kind of, okay, let's say you go back 10 years and the producer has a script to write, so they delegate it to a script writer to do it. The script writer would send something back and the producer would fact check it. They would just check it for spelling, consistencies, whatever. Just because AI is spitting out a script for you and it's supposed to be this kind of higher level of intelligence, that doesn't mean it's not wrong, like you're saying. It still requires that level of just basic proofing. Yeah, it's a very, I think it's, but I mean, it is, I was chatting to a friend the other day who he was writing a report, and the feedback he was getting was like, can we just say AI to just do a summary of this section? And he was just like, not really, because this report is going to be the evidence that AI is then going to use to create further, what they were coming back with was, that doesn't matter, just we need to use AI, we need to be at the forefront, this needs to be,
It's weird, isn't it? It's like people assume to be at the forefront of things, you have to be using AI because all our competitors are.
Exactly. And he was sort of saying like, yes, but it's not right, And then if AI starts citing itself, we're just going to get into this doom loop of forever incorrect information. So yeah, I think the basic principles of proofing, they haven't gone away just because AI can do this stuff really quickly. It helps, and it definitely helps with more efficiencies and stuff. But no, gosh, we still need to critically engage with everything that it's producing.
I do think as well, one of my main concerns, we talk about AI slop all the time. That's already a thing. It's getting better. I saw an ad today that was created with AI and it did look really good. But I do think the problem is the creative side. So although AI can execute quite well now and it's going to continue to improve, the bit that's going to make content stand out is probably still going to be the human element. So maybe it's the prompt, but whatever that means, whether that's the creative that comes behind it, whatever. How do you feel about that in terms of, creatives and their relationship with AI moving forward?
Oh gosh, I think I'm a bit more agnostic about it. I've got very, very good friends who are creatives who absolutely reject it all for good reason as well, I think. The reason why I say I'm a little bit more agnostic about it is because I do think there are certain tasks that creatives probably don't enjoy doing but are necessary to the process that AI could massively help with. Like I mentioned earlier, like the admin, the organization, being on top of all of that stuff. I listened to an interview the other day with Ed O'Brien, the guitarist from Radiohead, and he was saying, like, he asked Tom York for a bit of advice, like, how do you be such a good songwriter? And Tom York's advice was to basically become a really good librarian, because basically you're constantly coming up with ideas, great, but you need to be able to organize them so that you can come back to them and develop them and whatever. And I think if AI helps creatives be better librarians with their ideas, so that, when you do need to come up with something and you need to come up with that kind of creative solution, I think AI could generally help with that. That's probably quite an annoying, wishy-washy answer. But I also think people should have the choice whether they want to use it as well. I think if creatives don't want to use it as part of, their ideas generation, their ideas development, then I think that should be respected. I think as well, trust and authenticity is big.
Exactly what I was just about to say.
Yeah. You talk a lot about trust and authenticity, and that's why, customer advocacy is such a key part. And, the future of that is interesting, isn't it? But do you think that audience expectations are going to adjust and just accept slop for what it is, and just be in the same way that the introduction of being able to film on your smartphone, and people were using that in video production, everyone was like, what on earth? Like, why would you do that? Whereas now it's absolutely commonplace. Do you think?
I do. I think there's going to be a cultural shift. I think that it's not necessarily generational. My kids hate AI slop as much as I do. They're teenagers, and they can probably spot it quicker than we can, to be honest. Whereas customer advocacy, as you say, it's all about authenticity. So there was something in the press quite recently where someone had said something and it was allegedly edited so that it kind of had a different meaning or connotation. Is there any difference between that and using AI?
I think there is, because it depends on what the integrity and what the truth of the piece is that it's trying to convey. So if you're reporting on something saying, you know, this is what happened, I think you probably do need to be as honest as you can in that account. I think if you're creating a portrait of someone, for example, it's that whole thing of like, did they say it, or would they have likely have said it? Do you know what I mean? Does it reveal something about that they think and their worldview? There is a difference between the two, but I would say that's not a reason to go all out with AI and just generate everything. There is a slight difference, but it's the purpose and it's the context that it's being watched and understood in, I think.
This is heading too controversial for the Big Button on the Button podcast. So I'm going to wrap up and ask you for top tips. If someone is either working with an agency that is using AI, or maybe they're working with an agency and they don't know if they're using AI, that's where we'll start. What would your tips be for an organization that is commissioning an agency and worried about how they're using AI?
I would include use of AI in a brief, whether you're happy with it or not. Earlier, you said about a client that is hesitant to start saying that AI can be used because then people will just be like, I don't need to really worry about this anymore. I can make all the mistakes I want because AI is just going to fix it all, and it will lead to complacency. I think that's a very valid point, and that is going to affect the culture of an organization and how they approach marketing and communication and everything, really. So if you are happy for AI to be used, I would include that in the brief. Or if you prefer not to, or if you prefer limited use or case by case basis, I think be upfront about that. Definitely. I think the other thing as well is that, like I say, a lot of agencies are using AI. And they are trading on that as well and using that as a marketing message. I would be curious to find out how they're using it and which tools they're using it and the data protection and whether it meets the kind of strict standards, particularly if you're, say, a finance organization or a tech organization where you are dealing with personal sensitive data. You want to know where that is going. And I think that's really important to be clear and upfront about.
Yeah, great. So I guess the only thing I'd add to that is, absolutely make sure that you have in there that if they are going to use AI, that they're aware of the implications, the terms, conditions, all the things that you've talked about, right? So
absolutely. It's an ethical decision to use AI. As we've discussed, it can be used to misrepresent and change what someone is saying. I personally think, and this is what we do as an agency, is that we get the contributors' permission if we are going to use AI in that way, because that is someone's reputation on the line there, isn't it? And it's really important to seek that out before you just start, generating whole sections of a video, or a whole edit based on what someone has or has not said.
The other thing I guess I'd say, and this is linked to, because that's if you're working with an agency, some of our clients will use AI internally themselves to help them with their video. And I spoke to someone earlier today, actually, who was saying that it's never quite right with AI, but that some people are just kind of like, oh, it's good enough. And so we'll let it go kind of thing. But they wouldn't accept that from us if we were making it for them, would they?
No, absolutely not. And they shouldn't either. But again, I think, you've always talked about the hero hub hygiene approach to content. AI probably will help with hygiene content that does just need to be good enough. We can also help with that. And I'd like to think that actually our standards are slightly higher. So we will always try and get it right first time. When I was reading recently, I was reminded of the McDonald's Netherlands advert. Do you remember this?
I don't.
A couple of years ago. McDonald's Netherlands did a whole Christmas advert.
Oh, I do. Yes. Yeah.
Using AI that they had to pull because of the enormous backlash against it. One thing I didn't know was that the CEO posted quite shortly afterwards saying, like, this still took 10 people 5 weeks working full time on this. And it's still like not great enough. And even McDonald's sort of globally distanced itself from, that was just McDonald's Netherlands. So like, I think if you're looking to AI for hero and hub content at this point, I think approach of caution.
Yeah, and I guess that's another reason to work with an agency like Big Button, I suppose, because we're a video agency, but we can also help you manage the AI side of things. Absolutely. And stay on top of all the legal implications. Absolutely. And making sure we're making the most of those tools and using it when it genuinely means that you're going to get a better, more effective film.
Yeah, absolutely. Use us to help you navigate this, because it is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
I always enter these things like, I don't know everything. There probably are still things I don't know. But we do spend a lot of time thinking about this. We spend a lot of time talking about it,
Yeah.
don't we? And I think we can bring that kind of way of approaching AI and handling AI. I think we can use that to help clients. Definitely. Are you excited about AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was just thinking that. It was running through my head as you were saying it. I have mixed feelings about AI. Like most people, I think that really understand AI have mixed feelings about it. I think there's lots of opportunities. It's exciting for us. It's making our lives better and our clients' films better because we're careful about how we use it. I worry that some people aren't as careful. Like I say, speaking to a client today, he's worried about it and the road that they're going down. And I worry most about just everything looking the same. One of the biggest concerns our clients have when they come to us is how do we make content that stands out, that gets noticed? And I think if we're all relying on the same tools to create our content and asking the same questions, then everything will look very similar and not stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, because AI is drawing from the same pool of data, isn't it? Which is quite narrow, really, in terms of.
Yeah, at the moment, until we get to generative AI, which is a whole other ball game, we'll do another podcast about that when we get
I was
to
going to
it.
say, we could turn this into a monthly thing, couldn't we?
Yeah,
'Cause it's
except it won't
changing
be
so
us.
quickly.
It will just be avatars of us doing the podcast.
Absolutely. We'll just get it to generate what we think, and then get the avatars to say them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. And then everyone will get their AI agents to watch it and learn and
summarize it. Summarize the podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast today. Hopefully it's been useful for everyone that's watched. And I'm sure Sam will say the same, that if you have any questions or want to know more or disagree with anything that we've said, we're more than happy for you to get in touch with us. Drop us an email. All our contact details are on our website and we'll be happy to have a chat. But for now, thanks for joining me and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Si.